Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology.
Hello everybody, this is Dr. Joshila Grace, Associate Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology. Today we are going to see about final keyword in Java programming. So this is a continuation of your previous inheritance. Already we have seen a video where we have the various types of inheritance. So here we are going to see about final keyword, which is again a part of inheritance. So whenever you're going to have an inheritance, basically you have a base class as well as a derived class. The characteristics of your base class, you would be able to use it in your derived class. So whenever you're going to use your final keyword, you can make a class which cannot be inherited anywhere. So there are various ways you can use these final keyword. So this final keyword can be used before a variable, the final keyword can be used before a method, and the final keyword can be used before a class. So whenever you're going to use it before a variable, the variable cannot be changed with any other value. So it becomes a constant. The value what is being present will be a fixed value for the particular variable. It becomes a constant. Whenever you're going to use it as a method, before a method, you cannot override it anymore. So overriding is a part of inheritance. So this kind of final keyword which is used before a method cannot be overridden. Then last one is you are going to use a class which is going to have a final keyword. A class along with a final keyword cannot be inherited anymore. So these are the three ways in which you can use your final keyword. So this is a simple example where we are going to use the final keyword before a method. So in this class, if you see, I have a program which is going to have a single inheritance in it. So when do I say it is a single inheritance? I have a base class as well as a derived class. The derived class has the keyword extends, which means I am having it as a derived class for my base class. So in this type of single inheritance, I am going to use a final keyword along a function which is present inside my base class. So the base class is having a function called void fn1. So this function is being present with a final keyword before. This means that this particular function cannot be overridden. Overridden in the sense this function cannot be used, or the name of the function cannot be used in the derived class once again, right? So in this case, I'm going to have a derived class where I'm trying to use the void fn1 function which is being used already in my base class. So the base class function is going to be mentioned as final. So as I mentioned before, it is not going to be overridden anymore. When I try to use this function once again in my derived class, I could find that I will get an error message like this rather than executing the program correctly. So this is a single inheritance program where I have a base class, derived class, and a class which are going to contain my main function. So in this, I create an object for my derived class. Using that object, I am trying to call my fn1. So this means that it is going to call the fn1 function present inside my derived class. My derived class will not be able to override the fn1 function which is being present inside my base class. So immediately it is going to generate an error rather than giving a correct output. It will be generating error like this. The next example shows the final keyword being used before a class. Whenever a final keyword is being used in your base class and you are trying to inherit the class, it will be popping up an error. So if you see here, I have started with a class. So in this class, I am going to have being mentioned the class as final. I have a class which is named as first, which is being mentioned as final. This is my base class. I am trying to derive this base class inside my derived class. So derived class is named as second. I say it as a derived class because I have an extends keyword which tries to extend the property of my base class, that is first. I am going to use the particular function fn1 which is going to do some activity inside. Here we are trying to inherit a class which is going to be mentioned as final. So whenever we try to do this, we will not get an correct output. We will be popping up with an error like this. So whenever I have a program which is going to have a single inheritance, with a final keyword being present in my base class, this particular class cannot be inherited anywhere. Then I have a class which is going to contain my main function. So inside this, I have created an object for my derived class. Using this object, I am trying to call my fn1 function which is there in my derived class. So in this case, since I am trying to inherit the property which is present in my base class, the base class is being mentioned as final. It pops up an error instead of giving a correct output. So final class cannot be inherited anywhere. So the last program is about using a final keyword along a variable. So whenever I'm going to use a variable, I will be having a data type as well as the variable name. So here if you see the program, I have a class inside which I have a function. I have a variable which is named as A. Its data type I have given it as integer. Before this, I have mentioned the particular variable as final. It means that I have to give a constant value for this variable which cannot be changed throughout my program. Whenever I make a variable as final, I have to mention a constant value for the variable which cannot be changed anywhere. So here in this program, in the next line if you see, I am trying to make my A as 55. I try to make my A as 55. So whenever I try to make my A, that is my A is a final variable which is said to be a constant. So whenever I try to make the variable or change the variable to some other number, immediately it is going to give a output error as cannot assign a value to final variable. A variable which is being mentioned as final is said to be a constant variable which cannot be changed throughout your program. I have a class which is going to contain my main function. So inside my main function, I created an object for my class first, and using that object, I am trying to call my function. The program is being popped up with an error because I tried to change the value of A, which is going to be mentioned as final variable. So these are the various uses of using final variable, and these final variable enable you to secure the data, whether it is going to be an inheritance where you don't want to inherit or take up the properties of a class to anywhere else, or you don't want to change the variable value in throughout your program, you can make it as a final class or a final function, or it can be a final variable. Thank you.